Alright, so we're going to be talking about the big prophecy slash prediction that we were introduced to in episode 9 slash chapter 27 of the manga slash chapter 31 of the webcomic. The big prediction made by the seer Shibabawa. And this is probably the most important storyline in the entire series because it's likely where the series is indefinitely headed, and it's where it was originally started as well. And there's a whole bunch of little pieces that are connecting, and I'm going to be talking about them all in this video. And I'm also going to be kind of debunking what this prophecy is not about. So let's get into it. So first, let me just lay the groundwork of what this prophecy is, and then I'll go into everything else after that. So Sitch at the S-Class meeting says that Shibabawa predicted the future 6 months from now. She then grew frightened and had difficulty breathing, and then unfortunately she choked to death on a cough drop. But before she did, she recorded the final prophecy on a piece of paper that said the Earth is in danger. Or more specifically, I think it just said Earth and then danger. So Shibabawa's predictions are 100% accurate. And later on in the video, I'll explain why they are. She then foretold numerous catastrophes, dangerous creatures, floods, and major earthquakes, and some resulted in mass deaths, but she never once used the word danger. Something worse than a major earthquake or monster of threat level demon or dragon is going to happen, and then within 6 months. So that's it. That's what Sitch says, and we all kind of assume that this means she's predicting disaster level god here, since essentially there is only one thing greater than threat level demon or dragon. So we actually get a little more insight into this prophecy because sometime before Sitch reveals this to everyone, back in chapter 27, we actually see Shibabawa discovering the prophecy. And she says, a storm of calamity approaches, the end nears, the earth is in danger, and then that's when she kind of just, passes on. But that's just more so than what Sitch originally said, so that's interesting. More ambiguous, of course, but it's definitely letting us know that something is going to happen. So before I tell you what this is and how it's connected to everything, let me just tell you what it's not, and that's Boros. That was just comical misdirection from one. Now, yeah, Boros could be disaster level god, maybe, maybe not, but he's just not what this prophecy was. Yeah, if he went unchecked by Saitama in the S-Class, then he likely would have taken out humanity. I mean, why not? But the prophecy is still out there. It has not come to fruition yet, and I'm sure a lot of you already knew that, but there are some that are confused by this, considering that Boros invaded, directly after Sitch revealed this, but I just wanted to put that out there. So at this point, for me to really go any further and to explain this in depth the best way as I can, I have to go into webcomic spoilers, unfortunately. So if you don't want to know what's going to happen, I suggest you check out now. So let me also check off the other thing that this prophecy is not, and that's Garo, or more specifically, Awakened Garo. And yes, he does become pretty powerful once he reaches that state, and some people do consider him to be disaster level god, but Garo was just simply commenting on the conversation between Fubuki and Psychos about this subject, and he himself claims that he's that ominous future disaster level god. And this is also why so many people consider him to be on that level, but this is just Garo saying that he is. It's not like it's a narration or an official rating like threats typically would get in a text box. So Garo isn't the prophecy because, 1, he's obviously not the final villain, 2, not enough time has passed, and 3, we find out what Garo's eventual goal is, which isn't to destroy humanity, but to bring peace to it in his own warped way. Okay, so what is the prophecy foretelling? Well, it's extremely likely that Shibabawa is talking about the entity God. The same God that we saw give and both take Homeless Emperor's powers. And there's a whole bunch of evidence to kind of support this, and there's a lot of things connecting to it. But for God himself, I'll go more into him later. But for now, I want to go into the vision slash prophecy that Psycho saw when she was in high school. So, disheartened by her lack of ability to catch up to the level of Fubuki's Esper powers, she decides to try a new power, and that's look into the future. It's also known as the third eye among Espers, apparently. She then says if it works, she's going to become the second coming of Shibabawa. So this explains two things. First of all, Shibawa is being name-dropped here for a reason, and that's because it's extremely likely that what Psycho saw is the same thing that Shibawa saw. So 2, this explains why Shibawa's prophecies are always 100% accurate. It's because this is an actual ability that one can attain in this world, meaning that Shibawa was just really skilled at using the third eye Esper ability. Now let's go into Psychos' vision. So she says this is the future. It's pointless. There's no point in taking over the world. All these Homo sapiens know to do is eat, crack, mate, and reproduce. You cannot unite them. They are a bunch of food-wasting vermin even below that. There's no honor in ruling over the human race. They'd be better off reduced to 0. They must be destroyed. There's no choice but to destroy them. This is my mission. It is time the chosen ones eradicate these Homo sapiens. So then Fubuki asks her what she saw happening in the future. But at this point, Psychos passes out, and we don't find out exactly what she saw. So I think I have an explanation for this. So obviously what both Shibawa and Psycho saw was pretty shocking. However, there is like a stark contrast between their reactions. So Shibawa said the Earth was in danger. Ambiguous, of course, but it's likely that she feared for humanity rather than damning it the way that Psychos did. It was also established that Shibawa was altruistic in nature, as she used her predictions to help humanity and the Hero Association. Psychos, on the other hand, was not so altruistic and was established to be, like, not a good person. Like, even in high school, she wanted to rule the world from the dark, quote-unquote. So it's possible that God can also tap into this third eye frequency, or is possibly always connected to it, and maybe he influenced Psychos, as she was inherently misanthropic, the same way that Homeless Emperor was, and maybe he couldn't influence Shibawa because she was good. Now, or Psychos simply saw what God was all about, you know, like hating humans and whatnot, and just sided with his ideology. Either way, God is definitely tied to Psychos in some way or another, whether she was even aware of it or not. I mean, she said that they must be destroyed. There's no choice but to destroy them. This is my mission. It's time the chosen ones eradicate these Homo sapiens. That's like literally the same rhetoric that Vaccine Man and Homeless Emperor went on about. And yes, those characters are likely to be connected. Please check out my video. Homeless Emperor is way more important than you thought if you'd like to know more about that little side story. So this means that the Monster Association was just a product of the will of God all along. And that's pretty interesting, you know, like the main overall villain influenced, you know, a smaller villain or an entire villain arc, which is typical to stories and battle animes and stuff like that. But it's pretty cool that we're seeing it at this point, at least if we look a little closer into the context of things. So what is the ominous future? Well, I assume God will probably either cross over into their reality, or he'll just amass an army of like Homeless Emperor and Vaccine Man type beings, or whatever else he can do. We've seen that he can bestow powers to like regular people or just non-sentient things like in Vaccine Man. Whatever he was kind of ambiguous in his description of what. He just says he's the will of the earth, so he could have really been anything. But eventually, this army, or whatever God is eventually going to do, is going to destroy humanity. Or at least that's what they saw is going to happen. Something along those lines. And of course, this is likely to happen in 6 months, as per Shibawa and Sitch. So right now in the webcomic, currently in the story, about 2 months have passed since Genos has met Saitama. Meaning we have about 4 months of in-time story left before the prophecy comes to fruition. Meaning that we will still have like a good bit before the end of the series. And yeah, in my opinion, it's likely this is where the series will end, like at the 6-month mark with the theorized God War or whatever is going to happen with that. And that's because one has said that he's planned how to end the series right at the beginning, and he's currently filling in the middle. So Vaccine Man was the very first monster introduced in the series, and it's likely that he was a product of God. Also, the prophecy was set up very early on and gave us a ticking clock to look at for the rest of the series. So the series is essentially bookended on the villain God. And if you'd like to know how I think Saitama versus God will play out, check out my video, Saitama's Final Battle. So that's pretty much it. And yeah, the prophecy is about God. And I think it's super interesting, especially if you start connecting the dots like this and look at how the series is going to be bookended. Just at least in my opinion and how I hypothesize things. But let me know what you think about it. What do you think the prophecy is? Is the prophecy Blast? I don't know. He's always tied to something. But if you liked it, guys, please give it a like. I also have a Patreon, gives you access to a weekly Q&A, and if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day, and I'll see you